Today on The African Story, what is all this talk about some Africans calling other Africans slaves? Are we weaponizing slavery? Reminds me of the time this comment was made.
Igbos, I don't know them. I don't know where they come from. Because I know that if not for British intervention, I would still be selling them the way my father sold them.
Are all Africans equal, but some more equal than others? Did you know that some Libyans actually celebrate the death of Gaddafi every year? I have another question for you though. Did you know that religious cult massacres did not start with Paul Mackenzie in Kenya? Permit me to take you back to the year 2000 on This Week in Africa, where some cult leaders insist that the world must end. You really must watch to hear my tukobo. I am Miss Giving You What You Need, Gloria Ayo, and this is The African Story. What is news in Africa? We begin with 10 headlines you might have missed from the past week. In Nigeria, gunmen who kidnapped at least 287 school children in northern Nigeria have demanded a ransom of 1 billion naira, which is almost $622,000. They have threatened to kill the students if the ransom is not paid, and the Nigerian government has stated that it will not be paying any ransom. Still in Nigeria, Bola Tinubu has directed the opening of Nigeria's land and air borders with the Republic of Niger, and the lifting of other sanctions has also happened against the country with immediate effect. Whoa! And speaking of Niger, Niger has announced its decision to end its military cooperation agreement with the United States. Major internet disruption has been reported in various countries across Africa. Widespread outages were reported in countries including South Africa, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Benin, Ghana, and Burkina Faso. Sorry to all those who were affected. Senegal's top opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko, has been released from prison ahead of the presidential election later this month. To the excitement of many, myself included, despite being released, Sonko cannot run this month. Bassirou Diomaye Faye, his right-hand man, was also released from prison. Yay! And the people rejoiced and they were glad. In South Africa, the former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, has left the African National Congress, and this is not a good look. The ANC was the party that actually helped end apartheid, so whoa. In Somalia, the siege on a popular hotel in Mogadishu by Al-Shabaab militants who had seized control of the premises concluded after a 13-hour standoff when security forces successfully killed them. Ouch. Back to South Africa, 3 Egyptian monks belonging to the Coptic Orthodox Church were fatally stabbed in an attack at a monastery in South Africa, and a suspect has been arrested, according to police, at least as of the time of this production. The British government is planning to pay asylum seekers up to £3,000. That's about $3,836 each to move to Rwanda under a voluntary plan to help clear the backlog of refugees who have had their applications to remove in the country rejected. And in entertainment, actor Idris Elba is sharing his plan to build a smart eco-city on Shebro Island near Sierra Leone. He has also shared his plan to make it an environmentally sustainable island equipped with wind and solar power. And you know what this will do for tourism? Because you know I will be visiting. I love what Idris and his wife Sabrina do for the continent of Africa. I love that couple. Love them. I love them. And now to the lead story. So, Nigerian comedian Seyi Law recently trended heavily for a certain comment he made. And to be honest with you, I have no interest in regurgitating none of that stuff I saw on the internet, the stuff he said to people and the stuff they said back to him, because that stuff was awful. They were just going back and forth. But one comment that had me shooketh, woof, and this is actually why I'm redacting a lot of those comments, but there was one that really had me go, Whoa. So, this comment was actually directed at Gbadebo Rhodes-Viver, also known as GRV. GRV was a governorship candidate during the 2023 gubernatorial election in Nigeria. So someone insulted Seyi and compared him with GRV, saying, and I quote, "Imagine Seyi Law using such words addressing an MIT-trained architect, a son of the soil of Lagos State, a vibrant young technocrat from Lagos State who can trace his ancestry as far back." Seyi then replied, "I am more of a bigger stakeholder in Lagos than the son of a returned slave who decided to stay in Lagos." Someone then wrote, "You're an African man using slavery to score cheap social points." Do you remember when Asari Dokubo made this comment to Igbos?
Igbos, I don't know them. I don't know where they come from. Because I know that if not for British intervention, I would still be selling them the way my father sold them.
And then proceeded to flash his rifle. This was a man who was seen with Bola Tinubu a lot until a couple of months later when he began to complain about the marginalization of the Ijaw people. Very ironic, right? Anyway, it feels like every week now on social media, Nigerians are throwing ethnic jabs. Even with the recent tragedy that happened in Delta State where some Nigerian soldiers were killed. I won't even share some of the horrifying comments that I saw going back and forth. My 2 kobo is for the Nigerian government. Here we go again. No, for real. It's now coming down to me addressing the government directly because I'm tired of talking to the people. The people don't want to listen. And I'm not even a radical person. I'm far from it. But every week there is something going on that I have to address. The truth is, we all have our biases. Well, some more than others. But even if it's just on a subconscious level, we all have our biases. Now, when you have a leader who comes in or some aspirant of some sort, and these biases start getting fueled, it becomes easier to give in. And if you say the president was not the one spewing the hate, why talk about him? Well, the people who work closely with him did a lot of dirty work, and they were never penalized for it. I hate to yet again compare this to the Holocaust, but this was exactly how it started. We all look back, we read about the Holocaust, we're mortified, we're horrified, but it really all started like this. So now you divide the people, but you expect to lead a united people. The math ain't mathing. It is way easier to come in with a goal of unifying people. Otherwise, you get the opposite result, which is what we're now seeing. We're even becoming immune to it. You have no idea how toxic and traumatizing this stuff is for both the giver and the receiver, and even the one just observing on the sidelines. Yorubas are dragging Igbos. Igbos are dragging Yorubas. Some people are dragging Hausa. Like, leadership is not merely a position of power, but a responsibility to bring people who should be brothers and sisters ordinarily. You bring them together. The choices made today shape the tomorrow we all share. To the leaders who have willingly or unwittingly contributed to this divide, it is time to acknowledge the past, repair the present, and reimagine a future where every individual, regardless of their ethnicity, is valued and heard. Leadership demands the courage to bridge divides and even celebrate diversity. Diversity should be seen as a source of strength, not as a point of contention. One day after you're gone, posterity will read the history books that contain the legacy you left behind, just as we all read about the Jews and how they were mistreated. And no, I'm not talking about the history books that have been altered, edited, taken out of classrooms, perhaps. I am talking about the ones on the internet where they will never be forgotten. We are in the age of the 4th Industrial Revolution, and everything is documented. I will take a break now, and when I return, I will now give you the history of slavery so that we can understand why it isn't something to joke with. Feel free to share your 2 kobo right here in the comment section below. I'll be right back. Love what you see? Do you want to see more? Then follow me on all social media platforms right now. Hey, are you looking for quality groceries at affordable prices? Then look no further. I present to you A-Life Tropical Market. Yes, we're talking wholesale, retail, whatever it is you need, they got it. And if you're talking about impeccable customer service, listen, I'm not going to hype something unless I absolutely believe in it. Their customer service is top notch. And if you're looking for home delivery, look no further. A-Life Tropical has got you. They have African and Caribbean foods, whatever it is you need, meat, fish, small chops. Yes, small chops. Provision, snail, goat, whatever it is. And if they don't have it, just simply ask for it and I assure you they'll hook you up. All you have to do is call this number, 470-469-2836. That number again is 470-469-2836. And yes, they're available on WhatsApp. So check them out today, A-Life Tropical Market, and tell them Gloria sent you. Holla! Let's talk about slavery. Oh, I'm about to go Timbuktu on you real quick. Slavery began long before people from outside Africa came to enslave some Africans. Many ancient African civilizations, such as Egypt, Nubia, and the Kingdom of Kush, were already practicing slavery. The slaves were either captured in warfare or as a result of debt or criminality. However, slavery in this context was not solely based on race or ethnicity. Long before the transatlantic slave trade, there was trans-Saharan slave trade. And this involved the trafficking of slaves across the Sahara Desert to North Africa and the Middle East. Slaves were acquired through raids and warfare. There was actually trading within African societies. So there was a trade that facilitated the movement of slaves, gold, and other commodities. Internal slavery often involved individuals captured in intertribal conflicts, as well as those enslaved due to debt, crime, or being born into slavery. There was also the Indian Ocean slave trade, where slaves were transported from East Africa to regions around the Indian Ocean, including the Arabian Peninsula, the Persian Gulf, and the Indian subcontinent. Swahili city-states and other African polities participated in this one. And then, of course, the big one, the transatlantic slave trade, which was initiated by European colonial powers and still has a profound impact on the African continent. Many of us have an idea of this one, but I will summarize very quickly. European traders established forts and trading posts along the African coast where they purchased enslaved Africans from local chiefs and traders. So you see, some people had already been enslaved. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands and transported across the Atlantic Ocean to work on plantations in the Americas. There was the abolition of slavery in the 19th century after intense pressure from abolitionist movements, but some people still practiced it well into the 20th century. And guess what? There is such a thing as modern-day slavery in the form of human trafficking and forced labor. So, dear African, please let's not play with slavery. Also, out of respect for descendants of slaves all around the world, the UK, the US, the Caribbeans, so just note that some people were forced into slavery against their will. It's not something to gloat about. Think about it. Next up, This Week in Africa. March 17, 1992, South Africa. Apartheid ends. A referendum in South Africa ends apartheid, a racial segregation policy that separates the minority white population by prohibiting blacks from certain areas and activities. The referendum is restricted to white voters, and nearly 69% back F.W. de Klerk's reforms, effectively dismantling apartheid. F.W. de Klerk was the one in power right before the transition from apartheid happened in South Africa. March 17, 2000, Uganda, the Kanungu cult massacre. About 700 people affiliated with the movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God, a doomsday cult, convinced that the world would end with the onset of the new millennium, are killed. Here are the cult leaders. And here is the cult leader who predicts that the world would end on December 31, 1999. And when the world refuses to end, they decide to end it for the people by locking them inside a church. They still shut the entrances and the windows, and then the building is set on fire. Dear African, know God for yourself. He is just as accessible to you as he is to any being on this planet. I promise you. March 17, 2021, Tanzania. President Magufuli dies. President John Magufuli dies at the age of 61 following a 2-week absence from public life. His death comes after rumors of him contracting COVID-19, though he rejected the epidemic, thereby jeopardizing Tanzania's ability to moderate its effects. Magufuli is Tanzania's first president to die while in office, and Vice President Samia Hassan would assume the presidency 2 days later for the remainder of his 5-year term. That is also historic, as this makes her the first female president in Tanzania's history. Lots of firsts. March 18, 1975, Guinea. Nguema shuts down schools for not worshiping him. Guinea's dictator, Francisco Nguema, orders all private schools to be closed because he does not feel like they're worshiping him. Oh, I'm not making this stuff up. Even Catholic schools are shut down. In fact, outside of all that, even he asked for the Catholic priest to thank him at the start of every church service. Like, what in the world was going on? My goodness. March 22, 1976, Tunisia. Filming for the Hollywood science fiction movie Star Wars begins in Nefta, a desert in Tunisia. 12 Tunisian youngsters even portrayed Jawas robot merchants. How cool is that? The film becomes a huge success in 1977, and the leftover set will become tourist attractions. So if you're looking for where to go, look no further. Africa has it all. Woohoo! Did you know that some Libyans commemorate the death of Gaddafi? Time for holidays. Now to some holidays. March 19 is commemoration of the victory over Gaddafi. He was overthrown after NATO airstrikes helped defeat his forces in 2011 during Libya's civil war. The Arab Spring was a series of anti-government protests in the Arab world, and it prompted NATO intervention, leading to French involvement in Libya and the establishment of Victory over Gaddafi Day. Funny enough, there are actually 3 anti-Gaddafi holidays. And I'm sure I'll discuss them some other time, so all you have to do is just subscribe to The African Story. Tunisia achieved independence from France on March 20, 1956. Tunisia's history under French rule began in 1881 with the establishment of the French Protectorate and ended in 1956 with Tunisian independence. Even though the French made certain improvements in Tunisia, like, duh, you better, they favored their own citizens over Tunisians, and this certainly inspired the movement for independence. Namibia Independence Day is on March 21, and it celebrates its independence from South Africa in 1990 after such an uphill task, and even a regional war at some point. It was chaotic. But anyway, having been a German colony initially, Namibia obtained a mandate according to the Treaty of Versailles. The United Nations affirmed Namibia's independence in 1968, although armed conflicts endured until 1990. It was in this year that South African forces permanently withdrew and Namibia embraced a constitution. And this is apartheid, South Africa in the apartheid era, by the way, not the new South Africa we know. I mean, come on now. Come on now, the people are free. South Africa, speaking of South Africa, celebrates Human Rights Day on March 21 because on this date in 1960, 69 people died and 180 others were wounded in the Sharpeville and Langa townships when police fired into a crowd protesting against the pass laws. During apartheid, pass laws were implemented to segregate the population, functioning similarly to an internal passport system that restricted the movement of the black population from accessing certain areas. People united to proclaim their rights on March 21, and that day became so iconic that Nelson Mandela made it a public holiday, and that's what is being celebrated this week. Congratulations. Southern Africa Liberation Day is a holiday celebrated on March 23rd, and it's observed in Angola and other member states of the Southern African Development Community, such as Botswana, Comoros, Democratic Republic of Congo, Eswatini, among many others. This day marks the triumph of Angolan forces over their adversaries. Regarded as the largest engagement of the Angolan conflict, it stands as one of the most significant conventional battles on the African continent since World War II. Whoa! See, we're in Timbuktu today, y'all. We're always in Timbuktu on this show, okay? And now, fun holidays. It's so many of them this week, so I'm touching on the ones that I consider most urgent for Africa. Alrighty. Let's talk about Global Recycling Day. Global Recycling Day is on March 18. And I'm talking about this one because Africa recycles only about 4% of its trash. Yet we have about 70 to 80% recyclable material. And we may think that recycling isn't a big deal for us. We may think it's not urgent, but it actually is urgent. Yes, we've come a long way, but think about it. Do you think society rates people who are informal garbage pickers, for instance? And if there was a way to get them more organized, perhaps there will be less stigmatization. Africa has a lot of organic waste, which is a huge advantage for us, but we just need to harness it more. So we have even more gains for the environment and for our economies. Exactly. Imagine, let me break it down. Imagine the youth being gainfully employed in this business. There are market opportunities of about $20 billion. And this is just the informal sector. Now imagine what the formal sector would look like. Environmental degradation is a real threat to Africa. We lose over $60 billion of ecological resources annually. So we need to step up our recycling game. March 20th is World Storytelling Day. And of course, the African storyteller, me, is a huge fan of this one. Africa has too many stories to tell. And this is why a show like this was created. A lot of this stuff should not sound foreign to us. These are our stories to tell. The good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to tell them all. Likewise, World Poetry Day should be celebrated in Africa because we have poems for days. What am I saying? We have poems for years. It is our culture. It's in our blood. From Ghana's Kwadwumfo poetry, Oriki poetry among the Yorubas in Nigeria, to Izibongo among the Zulus and Xhosa people. I love saying Xhosa. I'm working on it. Poetry is definitely part of African culture. March 21 is the International Day of Forests. Africa's ecosystem isn't what it used to be due to deforestation, so one of the effects is climate change. Forests help reduce the effect of global warming. They also help preserve our wildlife because where else are they supposed to go, right? Even we humans, we need forests for a great quality of life so we can breathe cleaner air. I know, right? World Down Syndrome Day is an important one which happens on March 21st. Down syndrome occurs when a child is born with an extra 21st chromosome. The stigmatization in Africa can be intense. I have seen it myself. I've even been engaged in conversations where I had to enlighten people on how to better treat people with Down syndrome. A major effect of this stigmatization is that people with Down syndrome often do not get the care that they need. They can live fulfilling lives too, but without the adequate care, the odds are stacked even higher against them. So the next time you see somebody with Down syndrome, or even the parent of a child with Down syndrome, please show more love and care. They deserve it too. It's a lot to go through, and stigmatizing it, let's not do that. Harmony Day is celebrated on March 21. I am an advocate for understanding and respecting all cultures. Yes, for real. So this is an important one to share. We can celebrate our differences and embrace that very beautiful diversity that is so unique to us. Please, let love lead. And World Water Day is observed on March 22. Well, this one is about using water responsibly and making it safe for everyone. In sub-Saharan Africa, about 40% do not have access to clean water. Northern Africa does have over 90% coverage, so that is certainly something to celebrate. We just need to draw more attention to the water scarcity issues and even the sanitation issues, because water is life and everybody on the continent deserves life. Bloom 86 Media was the editor and technical director. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and share your tukobo on anything I have discussed with you today. You know, I truly, truly love reading from you. Until I come your way again, stay true, stay kind, stay beautiful. This is The African Story. Hola, do you want more contents like this? Then I need your help. You see that subscribe button? Yeah, it's right there, right under this video. All I need is a click. With your subscription, the algorithm becomes more favorable and it helps spread the word faster, and then I get encouraged to do even more contents like this. Get it? See? And please make sure you tell everybody you know to also subscribe. I truly, truly appreciate you. Keep it locked.